We continue with new light. I said the 76 Reds. I meant the 75 Reds. They're sort of grouped together in our greatest team scenario. We're going to get to that a little later on. But here's Ken Griffey Sr., who is on both those teams. And, of course, the 75 team. A lot of pressure on him, and he responded. Hello, Ken. Christopher Russo. Nice to talk to you today. How are you, okay?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's funny because 74, the Dodgers, I believe they got off to a 22-4 start. You had 1 in 73, 74 the Dodgers. So when you get this 75 spring training there in Florida, you want to make sure this is a great team. You hadn't won yet. So there was some pressure on the 75 team in spring training after the Dodgers in 74 and the fact the Reds had not won a World Series yet. How about that first?
Well, we weren't even thinking about that. I mean, if you look at there was actually 4 of us who were young kids at that time. It was myself, Geronimo Foster, and Davey Concepcion. And Morgan and Perez and Pete and JB had been on the teams that had been in the World Series previously. But, we were just there. We were young. We were hungry, ready to play, and ready to get started.
And listen, the team was 60-something and 17 at home. I did not remember this. Early May, to get Foster in the lineup, Sparky put Pete to third base, Ken, and all of a sudden the Reds take off. Talk about that move for a sec. Go ahead.
Well, you're talking about when they moved Pete from left field to third base, they put George in the lineup, and, all that did was add a lot more power to our lineup and consistency in terms of power. When you have Bench, Perez, and then Joe Morgan, who was going to hit you 20 or more, and then you have Foster, who could hit pretty close to 50 at that time, so it just made a big difference in our lineup. Plus the outfield, it solidified the outfield real well.
It sure did, and that's one of the prolific offensive teams in history. When you're playing that kind of team, Kenny, I mean, you're batting 2. You got Rose, you got an unbelievable 3, 4, 5. Foster hit 6 for crying out loud, and then Geronimo and Concepcion. I mean, that is an incredible lineup. You're right in the middle of it. I mean, no pitcher would scare you. I mean, no deficit was too great. That breeds the confidence with that kind of offensive team you had there in 75, right?
Well, our biggest thing was that, the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning were considered our innings. If we were down by whatever amount of runs, we knew that the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, they were going to make a change, and we had to get the relief pitchers real quick. A lot of people never talked about our pitching, though. Our pitching staff was outstanding. Billingham, who won 19 for 2 years. Gullett won 15 for the last, 2 years. Then you had Gary Nolan, Freddie Norman, and those 4 guys were outstanding as pitching. But they really never talked about our pitching staff, and that was our strong suit that what a lot of people didn't talk about because our offense was so potent. I think that was the biggest reason because they knew that our offense was so potent. And,
of course, a great bullpen. What was the pressure? Reds go out there, they win the division handily. They had won the division in 70. I know you were not there yet, but they won in 70. They had obviously won in 73. I mean, it's a ball club. They lost to the A's in 72. I mean, this team had a lot of success for 5 years. And you go into this postseason, I think, with a lot of pressure. Did a young player like yourself feel it? What was your thought process going into the postseason in 75?
I told you, my thought process was that I was hungry. I wanted to play, wanted to do well. And then when he moved me to the second spot, in the lineup, that gives me added. They said it was added pressure, but that's why I hit up my whole career was at first or second in the lineup. So it just added a lot extra speed. Never got doubled up or got doubled up once or twice during the year, which made it a big plus because if you get Pete on base and I can pull the ball through the right side of the infield, you got first and third, nobody out. Then you got to deal with Morgan, Perez, Bench, and Foster. So it made it easier, with men in scoring position all the time to make those guys a lot better, a lot more potent in terms of driving and running.
And I'll tell you, too, you know how great that team was, Kenny, that, in fact, you lose a Game 6 to the Red Sox in the Classic with the 6-3 lead in the 8th. The home run by Fisk wins it, Carbo prior to that. And you had the wherewithal to bounce back off a deficit in Game 7. That is what you call mental toughness. All the great offensive players, all the Hall of Famers. But how about the mental toughness of the Reds in that Game 7 against the Red Sox that year?
Well, that was the big thing. You think about that heartbreaking loss, Game 6, where we were up by 3. Bernie Carbo probably takes one of the worst swings in history of Major League. And then the very next swing was the perfect swing. He hits a 3-run homer to tie the game up at 6-6. And then in the 12th inning, Carlton Fisk hits the home run to win the game. And I always tell a lot of people that, you know, it's only 6 games. A lot of people think Boston won that World Series in '75. But, you know, we had to play Game 7, and we beat them in Game 7.
Sure did. Morgan got the base hit, and, of course, away you go with that first. What was the better team, Ken? 75 team or the 76 team?
Well, the 75 team was kind of feeling their way a little bit. I mean, we were just finding out what we can do. 76, we understood what we had to do in terms of playing and what we can do, you know, because I hit 305 in 75, and then I hit 336 in 76. So that was the difference, you know. I mean, we just knew what we had to do. And, it was, you know, people didn't understand. It was tough to repeat to win the World Series two times in a row.
Very hard. And finally, let's get a thought process here on A-Rod. Today, maybe this is the first step to make a contribution. You know, you obviously with your great son, never any steroid issues for him. Hall of Fame, we all know about that. How about A-Rod? Is this a step in the right direction as far as you're concerned today from the Yankee, well, I can't say a third baseman, but the Yankee star? How about A-Rod's statement here today?
Well, I heard the statement briefly, and I think it's a step for him in moving in the right direction, trying to get back to playing baseball. And I think that's all A-Rod wanted to do, is play baseball, just like any other professional baseball player that lives to play this game. And I think it's a big step for him to take, and a positive step for him to take, to apologize to the fans and the Yankees, and hopefully, you know, we'll see what happens.
Good job, Ken. Part of an historic ball club. Thanks for a few minutes. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it today.
Thank you.
Okay, Kenny Griffey Sr.